Can we see my slides?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Thank you very much for being here. I co-lead Accessibles along with Shelby, and this is our second event for Elastic's inaugural Accessibility Awareness Month. Thanks for coming and sharing your time with us. I see the participation numbers and I'm really happy. When we were bouncing ideas about what kind of events we wanted to have during this month, we knew that we wanted a chat with our customers who use our Kibana's accessibility in a forum where other elasticians and our community can listen in, participate, share, and learn. It's also about bringing this process of what we do on product accessibility side to a broader audience. De-silo it, I don't know if that is a word. We really want to bring it out of its silo where we at Accessibility Federation, we don't want it. Trevor and I, we want it out. This is our agenda for today. We are going to start with introductions, and then I'm going to ask some questions, but I'm mostly here to listen and learn, and they'll be asking each other questions as well. And then whoever wants, we can all ask questions. Starting with introductions. First up, we have Viki Galt, who is the head of disability information at the University of Edinburgh. Viki leads a team that concentrates on a variety of subjects, including but not limited to manual website and application accessibility testing. In addition to their accompanying accessibility statements, writing equality impact statements, contemporary disability legislation, and training in aforementioned areas. Viki has worked in the field of disability and accessibility at Edinburgh for over 15 years, previously working as a legal officer for the Disability Rights of Commission in Scotland. We are really lucky to have Viki. Thank you very much for being with us today. And Viki, along with Viki, we have Simon, Christopher, and Laurie joining us from University of Edinburgh. Thanks very much for joining us. Next, we have Ralf Ossowski. He is a physicist who has been working with DT Telekom for 25 years. And for the last 7 years, Ralf is leading a support team for accessibility and usability for software used internally. Their team scope is about 600 applications used by DT Technik, a subsidiary of DT with 20,000 employees. Ralf is joining us from Bonn. Thanks so very much for being here with us today, Ralf. We really appreciate your presence. And now I'm really happy to introduce our own Trevor. Trevor has been accessibility specialist for 6 years with over 20 years of design and development experience. He works on the EUI design system, improving accessibility through manual reviews, automated testing, and consultation. Trevor also enjoys researching performance and security on the front end to improve user experience. Trevor and I are part of Accessibility Federation. High five, Trevor. We are a small but mighty team. Thanks for being here, Trevor. And finally, my name is Bhavya. I work as a QA engineer in platform analytics team. I've been working with Elastic for more than 6 years now, and in accessibility for, I would say, around 4.5 to 5 years. I do release testing and feature testing, Kibana, and along with that, I work on accessibility testing, writing A11Y bugs, triaging them, writing automated tests, working with developers for fixing those bugs, and other coordination work with our external auditor. I'm going to stop screen sharing now, and we are going to start with understanding how Kibana is used. So I'm going to turn over the screen share to Simon. Simon, if you could take us through how Kibana is used at University of Edinburgh. Thank you very much.
Simon, you're on mute.
There we go. I'm getting too used to using Teams. That's my problem. So thank you very much. So going to give you a little bit of context for our particular use case, which I think is quite interesting in terms of who has access to Kibana and who is using the way that data in particular is presented. And it's that data presentation, obviously, that we're interested from the accessibility point of view. So we run a big low power wide area network across the whole of Southeast Scotland. It's about 7,700 square kilometers. It's 6 local authority areas. So it's quite large in the context of the amount of stuff that we run. And one of the things that we do is is an outreach program here at the university, which is called IoT in Schools. It's part of a wider data education in schools program run by the university. And basically what we've done is introduced IoT technology to all of the primary and high schools across the region. So there's some 550 schools. They're all these kind of blue circles that you can see on the Kibana map here. The ones that are filled in are the ones that actually have active sensors at the moment sending us data right now. And I guess the key thing is that's a population of around about 110 to 120,000 children, all the way from basically beginning school at the age of 4 or 5, all the way up to school leavers at 17. So in that population of 110,000 people, it's highly representative of the population in general. There are a lot of people with disabilities. There are some specialist schools as well, which concentrate in terms of supporting students with particular needs. And we want to make sure that what we're giving them access to educationally works for everyone, and not just the people who are obviously most capable in terms of their physical attributes, etc. So that's what you can see here on the screen. Basically, what we do is give the students the ability to access data coming in from these sensors. The sensors record a number of environmental things in their particular context. I'll actually switch to a different one. That includes carbon dioxide, temperature, light level, humidity, and also motion detection. Now, at the moment, the schools are sort of on their way back in terms of how our school year works here in the UK, and in particularly in Scotland, where we come back a little bit earlier than they do in England. But as you can see, we've got data plotted on standard graphs, and people have to be able to interpret this. So there's quite a lot of data on display. There are issues around making this interpretable by screen readers, and in terms of the default presentation that we put up on the screen, how does that work? How do people manipulate the selectors up here, such as the time selector? Is that easy for a screen reader to interact with? Not by default. And then there's the issue about the data that's actually displayed here on the graph. What we should really be doing is displaying a separate data table. Now, I know that we can access that. I'll move things around on my screen a little bit just to make it easier for me. Through the 3 dots, and you can inspect, and that gives us an alternate view. But actually, that interaction there is not something that a screen reader can work with by default when we bring that up. So that's a particular issue. And there's also the issue about navigating and moving around in a dashboard, because each of these are visualizations. They don't really talk to each other, and their ability to tab and navigate is also an issue. So that's kind of where I was going to leave it for the moment. We've only got a certain amount of time, but what I wanted to do was basically hand over to Viki, who's the expert in accessibility. I can tell you a bit more about some of the issues that we had with our default presentations that we created.
Hi, Simon. Thanks for that. Yeah, so just really touching on what Simon's already kind of drawn out. When we did our accessibility testing, we found a number of issues. Not unusually because of the nature of the kind of data we're seeing. You know, it's a lot of data output, it's quite visual data output, so it's quite difficult in terms of trying to make that accessible. As he mentioned, one of the key problems we had was around keyboard navigation. So for users who are only able to use a keyboard and not use a mouse, it's quite difficult, if not impossible, to navigate through the pages. And that in turn has an impact on assistive software, such as things like JAWS. So if people are, which is a screen reader, if people are using screen readers, it becomes very difficult to interact with this data, and most screen reader users will have very limited vision or will be unable to see the screen. So it's really about how we convey the information to them. That kind of ties into the lack of alt text for images, and again, that's difficult because the images are complex graphs, so you need to think about what kind of alt text you're going to put into that. We also found some color contrast issues, so color contrast issues that didn't kind of match the guidelines we are required to follow here, and some links that weren't formatted correctly. And also around magnification and reflow, we had difficulties magnifying the content, and we did magnify it. The pages didn't reflow, and what that means is basically that when they're magnified, the user still has to scroll horizontally, not vertically as well. So they were just some of the key things that we kind of came out of our accessibility testing. I don't know if at this stage it would be helpful to tell you a little bit about the legislation we operate under.
Could we go to that next? I'm going to ask DT to...
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Ralf, could you please tell us about your Kibana use case and how accessibility is looking for you and for you?
Yes, so at DT, we have a couple of Kibana installations, and my colleague Michael, who is with me today, he's running one of the bigger ones in our technology. So around about 110,000 colleagues in DT has in Germany, and 20,000 of them roughly working with the technology department. And so this is one of the bigger installations we use. And yeah, so I guess, Michael, maybe you can better present, as far as I understand, this main SMOP Smart Operations platform is used to offer display options to a couple of platforms that source data and produce data.
Yeah, what I can say, we are from Deutsche Telekom, telecommunications company, and we have quite a big platform with already like 1,500 users on our platform, data consumers, analysts who use the Kibana front end to create dashboards, visualizations, maps, to analyze unstructured log data. The use cases, everything what you can imagine on the term observability. So it's monitoring of different technical platforms that make up our telecommunication architecture, our network. So that be it routers, firewalls, applications, whatever, containers, pods, Kubernetes functions, all this is sort of integrated in our platform, correlated, and used, for instance, for problem solving, incident management, and it's part of our daily business operations. And as far as I can tell, the people who are supporting the customers and the applications, they sort of depend on our SMOPs, our elastic instances, and the Kibana front end. And yeah, it's very highly used, very intensively used, and there's everyone is very satisfied what Elasticsearch can provide to our business and our operations. So again, the main thing is our visualizations in Discover module, in Canvas, and dashboards.
Great, sweet. Ralf, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, maybe some more about the context we're using this. So more than 10 years ago, internally to DT, there was an agreement with Works Council to introduce any software that is used by our employees has to be fully accessible. And so this is the reason why we are always struggling for this, even though the European Accessibility Act now goes from the public sector, where the laws, like in US, for example, are existing already. Now this will be on the industry and all this. So we are coming from these internal agreements. They are not based on these laws like the European Accessibility Act, but internal agreements. And so we have some experience, and Michael and me, we are now from this spine. So there are also part of our company and marketing and IT departments that care for those customer products now, like our TV platform and things like that. So this is the reason why. And in our technology department, we do not have blind colleagues. This is also that sometimes, especially for dashboard applications, we exclude the this part from this. So our main part are low vision and motorical impairments, because they are more likely to happen. Overall in Germany, DT has a rate of 7% of disabled colleagues. So this is more than 6,000 colleagues, so we try to keep them and their expertise and their magenta blood, very important, inside the company and working with us as long as possible. And so this is what drives our actions.
Thank you very much. Trevor, could you please tell us about what A11Y Federation does and what you see in our work? Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavya. So our accessibility, or A11Y Federation, we meet twice a month, every other Wednesday, and Bhavya and myself, and it's an open invitation to elasticians. We have a handful of Kibana engineers who drop in frequently and hang out with us. We discuss a number of things. We typically start with open agenda items, anything that anyone is working on with respect to accessibility, whether that's writing new test suites, whether that's debugging existing tests, keeping our rule sets current, some manual testing they need help with, a new feature they want to explore. Really anything anyone's working on that has any lean toward accessibility, they are free to drop in and bring that to our attention and come hang out and discuss it. We discuss with our VPAT writer, the current progress of the current edition or the current version of our voluntary product accessibility template, or VPAT. We talk about progress, if there are new items, if it's what the state of that is. We also discuss any experiments folks are doing, any new ideas they had or things they've read or would like to try. Really, it's an open forum for promoting accessibility, promoting inclusivity in design, in engineering, in product. And we also talk a little bit of strategy about how we can, with small numbers, how we can expand reach and our purview into the Elastic organization and beyond.
Thanks very much. So moving on from that, I think we should talk about compliance requirements. Viki, could you take us through what are UK's laws and what is coming down the pipeline for us having to be accessible and compliant? Thank you.
Sure. So the situation in the UK is quite complicated because it's also different in England, Scotland, Wales. And basically, our accessibility requirements are more than America and more than the rest of Europe. So in the UK, we have the Equality Act 2010, which basically says that our applications, websites and applications must not place disabled users at a disadvantage. And it's an extremely strong piece of legislation because it's a breach piece of legislation, not a compliance piece of legislation. This was reinforced by the European legislation that was passed into UK law in 2018, which basically said that in the public sector, all public sector bodies must have websites and applications that are compliant with WCAG, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 AA, and as soon as that goes up to 2.2, which we expect to be probably around September, although it keeps getting delayed, that will become the standard we have to meet, and to make sure we have an accessibility statement on all our applications and websites, which is updated on an annual basis. So there's all that. In Scotland, we also have an additional duty on public sectors, which is in Scotland only, which puts extra emphasis on our requirements to buy accessible products, and also to make sure that we kind of impact assess all the kind of potential benefits or downsides to implementing some new piece of assistive software. So it is our legislation around this is particularly strict, and the government is very active in enforcing it. So they're going around looking at all the organisation, public sector bodies, organisations, accessibility statements, and if we haven't produced one that they feel is compliant, you're given 12 weeks to fix it, or you're passed on to the Equality and Human Rights Commission, who can then take legal action against you. So it's a very quick turnaround. And obviously any individuals can take legal action against you under the Equality Act. So it is a really kind of tight framework that we operate in, which is a little bit stricter than England and then Europe and then America. So we have some additional hurdles to other places.
Thanks for sharing. Ralf, I will go to you next. Could you talk a bit about what are the European laws for accessibility and compliance? Thank you.
Yeah, as I mentioned already, so we mainly care about our internal agreements, which are much older than the laws sometimes. And so this is a bit different than on calling on compliance. So we have to negotiate with so there is in Germany, you do not only have a works council, but you have a kind of a works council for disabled colleagues. It's and they also have to give their agreement if any software is introduced into our internal use. And so this is at least the rule where we try to fix the issues and to look for roadmaps to overcome problems with regard to this tight timeline that Viki told us about. So this is always talking about how many users you have. Maybe if you have affected disabled colleagues, you know about them and they are using, because we mainly do prevention in many cases. So this is the internal part. And in the public sector, this is not our business at DT Technology. But I asked some colleagues, because we have in Deutsche Telekom, there is a company called Multimedia Services, and they offer a lot of consulting on accessibility, and they mainly deal with the public sector. Because in Germany we have this barrierefreie IT-Verordnung, which is just the same as Viki told us. So public institutions, including universities, schools, municipalities, and also all agencies of federal and countries have to provide full accessible internet web pages. So this is the part where they deal with. But I got the information from them that they do not know about many files and lawsuits in this case. So this is not very common here to have this. So now with the European Accessibility Act getting into effect in mid of 2025, the German law will be also then in fact affecting our products in many cases. And so I asked the colleagues if they expect a flood of lawsuits then. And from this first part of the public sector, we do not expect this to be too fast, but maybe we really do not know what will happen there. So we know that we and other companies are preparing to get their products compliant to this. But this is not in that no really predictions that you could extrapolate from nowadays laws and say, okay, we expect this to increase by 10% or less. This is a bit difficult, because there are also some parts of this European Accessibility Act which are not too precisely. You can do it this way or that way. So some details are missing on this level. So maybe this hinders us in a way to get to prepare accessibility. On the other hand, it offers you some spaces to do it this or that way. So this is about the compliance. So, but these are only impressions from the colleagues that mainly support public sector and only few industrial sectors. And internally, it's quite different then.
Thank you very much for sharing. Trevor, could we please talk about what are US compliance laws and how it affects Kibana? Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bhavya. Yes, in the United States, accessibility for web applications and web products like Kibana is largely covered by Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. The act was amended using specifically the language of WCAG 2.0 level 2A or AA as the name standard for accessibility. That amendment took effect in January of 2018. The scope of it is very, I don't want to say very, but it's prescriptive to public sector. So largely anything the federal government, the United States purchases with taxpayer funds or things that are used in the public sector. So like government agencies, contractors to government agencies, you know, those type of, or that space rather. This is a requirement level AA of WCAG 2.0. This guidance also does apply to state governments, to county governments, really to anything in the public sector, and to some regulated industries, just a handful of them, healthcare and airlines, public transit being, you know, the primary, what we consider in the United States, private industry sectors that are bound by these requirements. Small business, private sector business, the language is a little bit more, the language is not clear. It is not specifically written that a private sector industry must have an accessible website outside of the regulated few. Progressive companies are companies that, with an eye toward inclusivity, are proactively, you know, making that a priority, but it's not a legal one at the time.
Okay, thank you very much. I would direct my next question to you. Beyond compliance requirements, why do you think accessibility makes good business sense? Why should we do it?
How's that question to me?
Yes.
First and foremost, we should do that because it's the right thing to do. Like, information should be accessible to everyone, you know, in a way that is suited to the individual, you know, a way that meets them where they are, and lets them accomplish the things that they're set out to do, or the things they've been tasked with. We don't want to increase burden on folks. We don't want to make tasks that could have been more straightforward or simpler or less time consuming more difficult than they need to be. You know, from a business perspective, that's a nice add-on, because it makes, number one, it makes it easier for prospective customers to say yes to our product. It endears us to customers, because if we have a product that's easy to use, that meets folks where they are, that's really helps them get their work done, or their, you know, keep their infrastructure safe, or keep their customers, you know, keep things running on time, to keep services running, that's a virtuous cycle all the way around.
Viki, would you like to add on to it?
Yep, sorry, it just takes me a while to find mute on Zoom. Certainly within where we're operating, there's a real kind of ethical need to make things accessible. So not just in terms of legality or you know, makes good business sense, which are all excellent reasons to make things accessible, but there's a kind of you know, based similarly on what Trevor said about it basically being the right thing to do. It kind of, I think it goes a wee bit beyond that here, in that we're required to do this, we should be doing this. It would be discriminatory not to do this. It would be the wrong thing. So yeah, I think certainly in Scotland, there's even a kind of additional aspect to it from maybe where there is elsewhere, and I think maybe other countries are playing kind of catching up on that.
And do you think that, like, I think because you have worked with the Legal Commission for so long, when did you start seeing the cultural shift happening, and what were the verticals for driving that cultural shift towards accessibility, that we want to be accessible?
Oh, that's a difficult question. It's really been a kind of drip process over time. I think we're in a completely different place now than we were, 5 years ago. I think there's much greater awareness of accessibility, what accessibility means. And I think that that's come from a number of sources that have all combined together. So I think it's a combination of sort of culture change within society, with changing in the legal requirements that kind of have supported that cultural change. Organizations realizing that if they're not doing this, they're going to lose business, they're going to be penalized, they're going to have their reputations damaged. So a real business need to do this. And I think it's probably a combination of all those factors coming together at once. And I have to say, I don't think there's been like a sudden change overnight. I do think it's just been a case of chipping away. And I think that's probably the case always with accessibility, that it is always the case of chipping away, making small amounts of progress. I don't think you're going to see massive changes overnight. And sometimes that can be quite discouraging. But if you keep ploughing on and keep chipping away, then you do see the changes in the long term.
Thank you very much. I completely agree with that. And that brings me to my question to Ralf, because I remember, because I've been working on accessibility and Accessibility Federation for 5 years now. And Ralf, we had a call with Ralf, Trevor and I, and Ralf sent us this email where he said, hey, you have come a long way from your roadmap. And that was such a validating moment for us. We are like, because we have been working on it every day and we could not see the progress that we did. Ralf, could you please share about good parts of Kibana accessibility, please? Thank you very much.
Yes, I can. I just have to get the right window. This one, should it be? Yeah, this is a document we received from Elastic in 2019. Here you can see, and we ask for how will you overcome accessibility issues we found, and received this roadmap and showing with versions 5, 6, 7, and finally address all other gaps with the number 8. And yeah, so this is really great to see after 4 years later. Still, Kibana sticks to this roadmap, and we did a test in the I guess it was the early 20 this year, and this is by our department I mentioned from the MMS, which is a part of our DT, which is easy to recognize as the color. So we excluded the blind users in this test, as mentioned, as this is not the scope of our internal agreement. We just made an agreement with the Works Council on that, because most of our blind colleagues are working with a customer service, serving blind customers. And so we found only few, so the more numbers of red thumbs, the worse the issue is. And so there could be up to 3-1, and the result was quite good. And this is really an outstanding thing. A couple of vendors we are talking with and challenging them to improve their accessibility. And so this was quite nice, and to see that the road was gone, and the level of accessibility was increased. So this is we have, and this kind of roadmap is important for us. As I mentioned, we are not talking about compliance in a legal way, but we are talking about negotiations about how to support prevention for our colleagues, and this is maybe a bit different than and if we provide a reasonable and reliable roadmap for a product or an internal software development, then the Works Council will accept this and wait until. So this is always in case that any colleague needs by accident or insurance immediate support, that solution has to be found. But on the other hand, we are just doing this preventive, and so this is a bit different to the lawsuits.
Thank you very much for sharing. Trevor, do you want to talk about what has been some of the successes you have seen with our Accessibility Federation and UI team since you joined us? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So this one actually encompasses the Accessibility Federation, the EY team, and also Kibana. So The Accessibility Federation this project was it's one we accomplished in December of last year, but we started talking about it really January or February 2022. One of the things that I've always been a champion of with respect to client-side applications, like things that are built with React or Angular or Vue, is making sure that screen readers announce new views or new route changes properly. When I jump from like Discover to observability or observability to security, if I'm a sighted user, I can see the change. Like I can see that I've visually navigated from one screen to another. If I'm using a screen reader, if we don't shim for that route change, screen readers won't announce that. And that was always something, that's always one of my favorite improvements with client-side applications. It's always one of the first things I look for. And we started talking about it in sort of a hypothetical case. Like if we were to do something like that, what would that entail? And the Accessibility Fed started talking about it amongst ourselves. And we realized we needed to line up a number of teams, a number of resources, and we had some groundwork we needed to do. So we decided that there were a few components in our EUI design system that needed not improvements, but it needed some additional features. They needed to be able to handle route changes within individual applications. They needed to be able to handle route changes across applications. So there was that work that needed to be done. We needed to engage with our Kibana core team because this was a big change. It was something that was going to affect all teams, all views. And so we didn't want to just come up with a one-off solution. We really wanted to look for something that could be a one and done that all teams would then be able to hook into and use fairly seamlessly and not disrupt their day-to-day workflow and not create a bunch of new UI or UX bugs. And then we also coordinated with our shared UX and application team. We brought the idea to them. We laid it out in a formal proposal. We said, this is what we want to do. This is how we propose doing it. Here's what the EUI team will be responsible for bringing to the Kibana teams. This is where we need your help. And this is what we, the Alley Fed, will offer in terms of support, testing, lots of manual testing, lots of making sure it was doing what we expected it to do, and also code review and support as the feature was developed. So this was a lot of it was front loading and planning and getting folks on board and getting folks, to commit time to their roadmaps and to make time, in their sprint planning, lots and lots of preparation. And then the execution took about, after the EUI design system components were completed, execution took about a month or maybe 6 weeks, start to finish. And in December, we rolled that feature out, and by all accounts, it was an unmitigated, unqualified success. We had one solution, it works across products. We felt that was a big boost. And we showed that a small team could reach out to a number of groups, could orchestrate them, and we could accomplish a really big thing with a relatively small number of participants.
I remember that, and it was absolutely awesome. It was a great feeling. I think I'm kind of done with my questions. Do the audience want to ask questions? Either you can type in chat or unmute yourself and go ahead and ask questions. Or if the panelists want to ask questions to each other, they could go ahead. I would say we have like roughly 15 minutes for questions and answers. No questions? Okay. Trevor, were you about to say something?
No, I was just looking. I was just doing got the squares of folks up, and I was just sifting through it to see if anyone was coming off mute or if folks were had a question they wanted to tee up.
So maybe one question to Trevor, because I didn't notice this you call it the alley confederation, and I didn't mention this before, and so this was a bottom up, a grassroots initiative, or was it just top down from any part of the board?
Thank you, Ralf. So the question was, as our alley fed, our accessibility federation, was this a grassroots from the bottom up or more of a top down? Bhavya, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this feels like very grassroots. I think it was actually you who invited me to it when I came on board and started introducing myself to folks in various departments. You said, "Hey, we have this meeting. Are you interested in joining?" I said, "Absolutely."
Yeah, I think it was very much a grassroots effort, because I think 1 year to me joining and testing, back then we had Tanya and Alex, who are our product managers, and they started talking about VPAT and Section 508 compliance, and I got really interested in it. And then we found out that through Axcore plugin, we can do some automated testing. So we started doing automated testing, and we are like, hey, these are the bugs. And then we found that we needed to engage with an external auditor because we did not have the capacity to audit Kibana. And we started engaging with this amazing individual called Mike Barlow, who started auditing Kibana for accessibility. So yeah, we keep throwing. Some days we throw 10 stones, some days we throw 5 stones. So it's been happening. It's happening every day. I see a question from Matthias. He's interested in Kibana. Matthias wants to fix the most important accessibility feature, like with the one with the highest priority. Viki, do you want to go first? Or Simon? Whoever wants to take that question.
For me, it's keyboard navigation, because keyboard navigation impacts on so much else. I don't like prioritizing which to fix. Sorry, that's a terrible answer to this question. I don't like prioritizing because quite often that means you're prioritizing one disability over another, which obviously don't like to do. But yeah, if you wanted to nail me down to something, I would say keyboard navigation, because it would impact on other areas as well.
Thank you. I think keyboard navigation is something that not only people that are impacted, but that everybody is benefiting from that. So this is generally something very useful, but I'm also sometimes surprised how much people are using the mouse with certain features. You would think people who work a long time with the product, they are using everything with keyboard, but it ain't the case. So keyboard navigation is definitely something that's very helpful for speed of working with the product. Thanks.
So I would stress this also. So the keyboard is one of our for the internal accessibility. This is always one of the major requirements, because many elder colleagues are they use it because mouse navigation may be very high sophisticated, and on the other, the younger colleagues in technology departments, you have a lot of people working with the keyboard in their platforms, and so they like to use the other applications. Then we use them for monitoring mainly, as Michael told us before. So if you're a programmer, if you're configuring network elements, and there's many of these things are done by keyboard, and if you then have to switch to an application that forces you to work everywhere with a mouse, this doesn't make them happy. So this is not away from the accessibility, because we're also talking what makes a business case in this case. So it makes really a high usability if you do not always have to switch between the different modalities, which is very inconvenient. So this could be an argument internally also to do keyboard operation, not as an accessibility only, but also as a usability part. And I would agree to Viki that you shouldn't try to prioritize the people. We are all equal. There shouldn't be just from statistics, or you shouldn't do a priority like that. But obviously, in working, you have to do one after the other. That's the problem.
Yes. When we had the call with Simon and Viki, one of the use cases we spoke about was there is a sensor in a crocodile enclosure. And I kept thinking about it. There is a sensor in a crocodile enclosure and school kids have access to it. And if there is data, the sensor records the data when crocodile moves. And if somebody who's different, who can't see the chart, that kid, I think that's disappointing for that kid. I think we would like to fix that for that kid. So that's how I feel about it. There is a couple of more questions which came in. Are there any new ideas to educate, train new users with impairments to use Kibana, for example, with hearing impairments? As far as I know, there's nothing on our roadmap. Trevor, do you have any ideas about it?
Yes, but I'll have to caveat them that these are not roadmap ideas, but they are very much dreams. Myself and a couple of one of our charts designers and also one of our design leads who we were sitting around together noodling one day when we were all together in Orlando back in the spring, and we were very enamored with the idea of aural presentation or sound presentation of chart data. And Davey is a musician, so he had a lot of music theory background, and we really started riffing on the idea of both panning, like left to right or right to left, depending on one's reading order, across a sound stage. Like, so like in my case, it would be if we thought about the start of the chart, I could hear it in my left ear and then panning across my sound stage as we moved across the chart to the right, and using pitch up or down to indicate rise and fall. Like, this was all very theoretical, but also technically within the realm of possibility with web audio API. And so then we started really kind of going down the idea train around like different, like being able to define like different musical scales, for like to assign priority or severity to change in a chart style. Like I said, very theoretical. But Apple has done some work around in this regard, and I think a few others are working on it too, as a way to promote richness in visual chart representations, like time series, like stock prices or log files, or anything that's a very dense data set and is presented in histograms or in long line charts. There's a lot of information packed in there, and that's really tough to take visual information and flip it into a table. Your table might be 10,000 data points, but if you can summarize it in other ways with text or with sound, that might be ways to make a richer experience and take something that's traditionally been very visual and present it in new ways.
Hopefully, crossing fingers somewhere down the line in the roadmap. Okay, there was a question from Jess about what are good ways to stay educated and up to date on these initiatives, so I can share it with others in my teams and the industry. Like for us, Elastic is concerned, you could join Accessibility Slack channel, ERG the Accessibles. Trevor sends out a really nice newsletter every month detailing all the accessibility work we have done on the product side. Viki, would you have any resources to share? Sorry, my words are getting garbled.
Yeah, I'm just conscious that our resources are probably country specific. So if people gave me an idea of what kind of resources they were looking for, in terms of what they're looking for specifically, I can have a look and see if we had anything that would help people or which we could direct people to. I'm not sure if people are looking for kind of an update on the web content accessibility guidelines or the legislation or accessibility in general, or what specifically they're looking for updates on.
Just, do you want to come off mute and
Yeah, sure. So for me, I would be interested in how do you follow the topic in general, because I work in site reliability engineering, so I'm not necessarily a developer or a UX person, but this is something that affects a lot of my friends and things like that, and I'd love to be able to be a better ally and advocate for accessibility in the product. And that is something that I can do as an SRE engineer.
Yeah, there's usually so there's a number of kind of accessibility newsletter forums that are in the UK that have that kind of send out, you know, regular updates on what the new developments are, and on what's happening. From my perspective, I also keep a close eye on the case law to see what's happening there. But what's happening kind of on the ground takes a couple of years to come through to the case law, so you're a bit behind if you're just looking at that. I see Simon's come off. I've come on camera, so I don't know if he's got something he would like to add here.
Maybe not it specifically in this. It was really, there's a good conversation going on in the chat, and I was just gonna maybe highlight a couple of them and kind of add my encouragement, keenness to see to respond to this kind of idea of looking at Elastic. I suppose what I would try to say is that being able to demonstrate how Elastic has features that allows us as users to create accessible displays of data is going to be a positive selling feature. And there's no question that in terms of procurement exercises that we, in our sector, public sector in general, particularly public sector and education, we will be putting requests out there that will require these capabilities to be present. So if you start to think about how you're able to put materials together to explain to us how you've got the best product, then that's going to be worthwhile work on your part. And I noticed that someone's mentioned in here, I can't remember if it was Matthias, is saying he's done some sonification work in the past. And I'm like, that sounds fantastic. Can we get a look at this? Because we're interested in exploring that. So one of the things that we're looking at with our IoT in Schools program is actually engaging specialist teachers to help tell us what we should be doing with our presentation of data so that we can be more accessible. So if you've got any experimental features or anything like that, little things that we could potentially look at, that would be really helpful. So going Matthias, there you go.
Thank you very much. Ralf, would you have any resources to share?
So what I thought of was if you are with the development of the application, and so it's easy to find the resources how to improve your software, but the problem to get this in the whole company and to find everybody being involved. So we started now to use things like the Global Accessibility Awareness Day to show our colleagues how you can improve accessibility in our Office, Microsoft suite that we use day by day. And just to see, we had this in the upfront of this call when we had a look at that one slide, and it's sometimes very easy and understandable to any kind. If you're working with a finance or the HR or customer facing jobs, so whatever, you can just understand this the attitude of accessibility better, and using these Office applications that your company uses to show how this can be done day by day can help them to say, okay, I can do something for this, and I understand this, and I change my attitude, and I maybe detect problems that disabled people have. And so this is the way that we are trying to shift. And if you're then in charge to design or develop or to test an application, then it's easy to say, and you will find these sources there to get special. But getting involved the whole company and getting this to the claim of your product and your company, this may be more easy if you have your daily work connected. So this is the resource that I would like to share in this way, and it's amazing. Like people say, okay, I never noticed that Office offers you this accessibility improvement checks, and like we had this italic or getting rid of the serif, German is serifen, the fonts with the these are easy things to do, and I think over the time, this will change and broaden your view and your perception of disabilities and how to include everybody can join and everyone can contribute and work with us.
Yeah, this is our first Accessibility Awareness Month at Elastic. We have celebrated Global Day of Accessibility Awareness in the previous years. And yes, this is something which I completely agree with you that I think it's something which our first workshop was on disability justice in the face of ableism. Like under the theme was basically, we all have temporary able body and mind. I can be part of this community now when I'm going down the stairs. So bringing that out into the product and how we play globally, yes, I think it is really worthwhile work doing. We got 3 minutes. Any closing thoughts from anybody? Please go ahead. Thank you.
Just to say, we have a suite of pages on our website that detail how to make various documents accessible, which might be of use to some people. So I'll just pop the link into the chat for that in case, I'll just search now, in case that is of use to anyone.
I was just going to add and say thank you for running this session and having this particular focus on accessibility. It's really good and it's really refreshing to see, and all power to you, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come. It was like completely wild idea. I'm like, we are going to talk to these people and we're going to get them to come and talk to us. So yes, I really appreciated it. Ralf, would you like to close off with anything?
Yeah, I can close with the introduction. So it makes fun to work with you on this case and to see the process, how you pick up this, and yeah, this inspires us also to get more on this way to accessibility and keep on this way. And seeing the similar way of this grassroots initiative we have also at DT, and yeah, just go on. We're getting more and more day by day.
Thanks. What about you, Trevor?
I want to thank our panelists, everyone who agreed to come on here, and I really want to thank Bhavya for bringing this idea up, for saying, "Hey, what do you think about?" and bringing it forward. And I hope when she brought this idea to me, my answer was an unmitigated yes, like with as much enthusiasm as I feel for it right now. It was such an excellent idea, and I'm so happy that you brought this together and appreciative you asked me to be a panelist. This has been an excellent experience.
Thanks very much. This was such a pleasure. This is the first time some of us are doing it. I know who in the panelists are first time we are doing this. So I really appreciated everybody's time and the sharing. We learned a lot. Okay, and I'm going to say bye-bye. I wish you all a very good rest of your week ahead. Take care. Thank you very much. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks.